just overrode in line 6.
Okay, that's correct.
Now, is that,
No, hold on.
Ms. Massey.
You increased park funding, okay?
by 1.3?
Yes. The question before you now is whether or not to override the veto, and the veto was of council's decrease in the police budget, okay? And the motion is to override. If you vote yes, you override the veto and restore funding to the police department, because you decreased it as part of your amendment.
No.
We decreased it, he overrode it, he vetoed it,
But hold on, hold on.
puts it back in.
Go
We
slow.
override it, which takes it back out.
Okay, the mayor's budget did not have a decrease in police funding of this amount. Council amended that by decreasing the police budget. The mayor has said, no, I'm going to veto that. If you veto that, you restore what was in your amendment. You restore what was in the budget, which is $500,000 back into the police department.
Approve the veto.
If we uphold the veto.
We uphold the veto.
Uphold the veto.
If we uphold the veto, if we vote no, we uphold the veto.
If you override the veto, the $500,000 still comes out of police. If you uphold the veto, then you restore full funding of the police department, and that will come out of the unrestricted fund balance.
So
It's not unbalanced.
So what we're really saying is 1.3 comes out of the reserve instead of 565.
565 comes out of the reserve. Rather than out of the police department, it would
we
come out
already
of the
have
unrestricted reserve.
565, so it would,
And maybe we should ask Carr to make
Yeah,
the extra
can
special
we ask
double
Ms.
sure.
Skinner?
Okay.
I don't think that doesn't happen automatically.
Please come forward.
Where there's,
Good morning. Merry Christmas.
Good morning, Merry Christmas.
right, so I
Gar Skinner.
thought we had to
If you override the veto, then council's decision to reduce police's budget by $565,000 stands. Can we just keep it there? If you override the veto, your decision to reduce the police's budget by $565,000 stands. If you do not override the veto, then your decision to reduce police's budget does not stand, so police's budget will be as proposed by the mayor.
Councilmember Bennett.
And the question then is, if we, if the money is restored, we're then, if we're keeping the bottom line from balancing the budget, we'd be $565,000 short from balancing the budget. Where would that $565,000 come from?
I think it would have to come from the reserve.
Okay.
Other questions? Councilmember Knight.
Skinner? So, not so fast, please. So we just upheld the veto on line 6, which...
No, overrode it.
we just overrode the veto, thank you. We just overrode the veto, so line 6 stands as in the council's budget. We increased parks by 1.3 or 1.13.
No,
And, yes,
you increased it by 565,000 to 1.13.
no, we increased it by 1.13.
Increase it by 1.1.
Sorry.
We increased it by 1.13. We only specifically identified half those funds. So we are saying we're going to take 100%. If we do not override line 7, we are saying the entire 1.13 comes out of the fund reserve.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilmember Miller.
So I guess that's just an automatic reversion, because if there's an unbalanced budget, the unbalanced portion comes out of the unrestricted reserve.
Yes.
So
So
why
at the end of the
would,
day, I mean, you have other decisions to make that might influence what the, but I think at the end of the day, to the extent that your revenues or your expenditures exceed your revenues, it would be a draw from the fund balance, which we consider to be the revenue source to ensure the balanced budget.
so this is a procedural question then. Had we adopted the mayor's budget, which left a $1.13 million hole, would that amount have come out of the unrestricted fund balance automatically? Where would it have come from?
The mayor's budget assumed that we would have a different rate for our watering.
But we didn't. So the fact is, there's a hole in the budget. So if we had adopted that budget with a hole, because there's no special rate, what would have happened legally with the budget? Where would that $1.13 million shortfall come from? Just, you wouldn't water the parks? Is that?
Ms. Massey, do you want?
Okay.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, from a budget perspective, it wasn't unbalanced, and there was no hole, because
Correct.
revenue equaled expenditure, okay? Now, from a operational reality perspective, when you get to the middle of the summer, into summer, you may have a problem, but from a budgeting perspective, it was balanced. Is that?
That's correct.
Questions? Comments? Councilmember Pico.
Not a question. On this particular line item, I was against taking it from the police, and I will continue that particular position, and I will actually vote to sustain the veto. But I want to say something about that. The public safety is our #1 priority, and that's why I've held to trying to ensure that the budget for the police and fire are supported, that we increase our staffing to back to where it used to be, and that we support the equipment that they need. But I want to make clear, there's been an awful lot of histrionics going on about cutting the police force. And, accuracy and integrity compel me to point out that we did not cut the police force. We reduced the increase, and we still increased the budget by $4.5 million. So that's not pocket change. So it's very clear that we were trying to take a balanced approach. With that said, I will vote to sustain this particular line.
Further comments? Is everybody clear on what they're voting? Any other questions? Okay, let's vote. That is a vote of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a vote of 5 to 4. That override is defeated.